Today on Beyond the Badge, we're sitting down with Deputy Chief Lance Deaton, soon to be Assistant Chief of Police. He's led multiple divisions, most recently investigative services. He also graduated from the FBI National Academy and now stepping into a new chapter following the retirement of Assistant Chief Deborah Kennedy. From businessman to badge, from rookie to command staff, we'll talk all about his journey, his expectations, and what this next role means for him, his team, and the department. Right now, so you've been named Assistant Chief. How does that feel? What are you expecting in this new role?
I'm super excited about the opportunity. It's been an exciting transition. It doesn't take effect until this next Saturday, but I've been transitioning for about the last week or so, and so it's different. It's different from running a bureau, where my last two assignments I've actually been running and managing a bureau in investigative services and support services. So this is a little different. This is more of an advisor role to the chief, and or at least that's the way it seems right now. And then trying to assist the other two deputy chiefs in the operations side of what they need in order to be successful to manage their bureaus.
All right, and when you say the other deputy chiefs on the operations side, for those who are listening who may not know what's under operations, that's your investigative services and patrol.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be the assistant chief over investigations and patrol or operations.
Got it. Okay. Now let's talk about your current role right now, as it's still technically investigative services. What are you most proud of from your time there? How long have you been over investigative services?
I've been back in investigations as a deputy chief probably about 2 years.
2 years.
And but I worked up in investigations for almost 10 years, working violent crimes as a detective and as a sergeant. I stayed up here for almost 10 years and then left and went to patrol and back to motor squad for a little while before I went to support services as a deputy chief. So I've worked up here over half of my career. I've worked in investigations,
Right.
But 2 years as a deputy chief.
And what are you most proud of? Like any special initiatives, like cracking cold cases under your leadership as deputy chief?
As a deputy chief over investigations, probably one of the things I'm most proud of, and this is not a reflection of me, this is a reflection of our people and the work they've done, is their clearance rates. Our clearance rates are through the roof. We are well above the national average in every single Part 1 category. And I am super proud of the work these guys have done in a time where, it's not always easy. People don't always want to cooperate and don't want to always talk to the police. And these guys have worked, and girls have worked so very hard to try to make sure that the victims of these cases, these major cases, have some closure and receive some justice. So super proud of all the work that's been done over the 2 years that I've been up here. And again, that's not on me. That's on the work that these guys are doing and girls are doing.
So we mentioned the clearance rates in multiple podcasts. Very first with Chief Mathis, and then came back with Sergeant Hayes. Do you attribute any of that to like the training and things that we've implemented over the last few years, or?
So I do think that the training and experience of some of our investigators have a big part of that. I also think the technology program that we've implemented over the last several years has played a major part in our ability to solve cases, and not only solve cases, but solve cases quickly. See, in my time as a detective and as an investigator, we were doing things manually. We were doing things, we were, knocking on doors, and, we were working cases differently than they're able to work cases now because of the technology. And so they're able to clear cases so much faster. Well, what that does is that keeps, because nobody commits, or very few people commit just one single crime. If they're committing a major crime, they're going to continue to commit crimes for the most part until they're caught, or until something major changes in their life. And so when we can get them early, that alleviates those additional crimes, and I think that's one of the reasons you're starting to see crime rates drop, and another reason why you're starting to see our clearance rates, go through the roof. So I think there's a couple of things. Manpower is certainly a big issue. Having the increased manpower, having the investigators, and we have a lot of really new investigators, but we also have a lot of good seasoned investigators here that are, have really bought into training these new investigators that are coming up. And again, the technology has been, incredibly helpful in the solving of these cases and to help us solve them quickly.
And when you're talking about technology, I know that you oversee the violent crimes, special victims, real-time crime center. I'm missing some property crimes, ID. Like, those are a lot of things that house investigative services. So let's go back a little bit, forward now. You recently completed the 10-week FBI National Academy.
I did.
Think about the time before you went and after. What has changed? What's going to prepare you for this assistant chief position?
So one of the things I think that going to the National Academy did for me was, one, it gave me an opportunity to kind of unplug for a little bit and kind of recharge. So that was very helpful. The other thing is I got an opportunity to meet and communicate every single day with people from all over the world. We had people that were in leadership positions in other countries and in almost every state in the United States. And so having that ability to draw from their knowledge and their experiences, huge, invaluable. We also had the opportunity to really meet and get a chance to communicate and learn from some of the best instructors there are in the world, and I purposely chose courses, and so you have 5 or 6 classes that you take, and we do PT as one of your classes, but then you've got other 5 or 6 other classes that you got to take, and that's what you do. You're in training all day. And it's very structured, and it's almost like it is an academy again. It's almost like being in the original academy, except it's at a level where you're dealing and learning about leadership issues. Well, I purposely chose classes that I thought would be outside of my wheelhouse. I did take one violent crimes class that I thought would be kind of my fun class, and little did I know the instructor there was a BAU guy, and had been with the FBI's BAU unit for many, many years. And the stuff we learned from him was incredible. So it was things I was really interested in, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I got a lot of value out of that. But the other classes I took had a lot to do with wellness and how we, have to be well in order to lead well. And that's a perspective that I just never really thought about. I thought about my personal fitness and that kind of stuff, but I never spent a lot of time thinking about mental health and spiritual health and how those two things and your physical health are all intertwined. I've always kind of viewed those things as separate parts of my life. This training helped me understand that, no, those are all intertwined. And we, as a profession, have a very, very high suicide rate. We are more likely to die by our own hands than we are to die in any other type incident. We are almost 20 years difference between people in public safety and law enforcement having their first heart attack versus civilian people. Almost 20 years difference. And that's staggering.
Right.
And it's so I had an opportunity to really learn about a lot of that. One of the things we've done since I've been back is to try to implement with our investigators who are getting these calls where they're investigating, really terrible death cases or child death cases, or cases that are just things that, you look at that and go, that's probably weighing on people. So we do a debrief. We started that when I got back. We're doing a debrief when they have those cases. I bring them in And we just sit down and we just talk about it. We don't talk about the criminal aspects to it, but we just talk about it. And anybody that's needs to get something off their chest. And it's kind of a buddy check, if you will.
Right.
And that's what I want them to understand is, hey, keep an eye on each other. Because, what we deal with is, we're constantly, every time they go to these calls, every time they deal with this high-stress situation, they're filling that bucket up. And you never know, and this is one thing I learned I never really considered, because we're trained and we're usually pretty good at compartmentalizing stuff. And I've just always worked off that premise. What I learned while I was gone and what I've seen, after I really started to evaluate that, what I've seen over the course of my career is, that bucket just keeps, the analogy, the bucket just keeps filling up, and you never know which call it's going to be when the bucket's full and it's going to tip over.
Right.
It might not be the worst call you've ever been on. It might not be that call. That it could be something that is far less than the most serious thing you've ever seen, but it's the case that sends sends you into a spiral. And so if we're not doing constant maintenance, then we're never emptying our bucket, is the analogy. So I really focused a lot of my classes while I was there on that and how we communicate that to our people from a leadership standpoint, because there's always a trust issue,
Right.
and we got to do better, because we can be better. There's no reason why we should be having heart attacks 20 years earlier than our civilian counterparts. That's something we can control.
That's right.
We can do better. We just have to do it. And so I know that's a lot to say, but that's a lot. That was a lot of my training while I was gone, and it's something I really felt there was real value in. But also, the people were just unbelievable. My roommate was from Laguna Beach, California, and it's like you got a Georgia kid and a California kid, and we were like, man, I don't know how this is going to go. We'll be friends, lifelong friends forever.
That's amazing.
Yep, it was a great experience. I came back and told the chief, anytime we can get somebody in a slot, we should send them. It's well worth it. Facilities aren't great. 10 weeks away from home is tough. But they told us when we were there, said, hey, I know it's tough now, but when you leave, about 3 weeks after you leave, you're going to get this feeling of, man, I wish I could go back.
Right.
I was
you
like,
want to go back?
y'all are full of crap. That is no way that's going to happen. And I'm ready to get my behind back to Georgia and Alabama, and that's not going to happen. Yeah, 3 weeks after I'm back, I'm thinking, man, I really miss all those guys and girls, from up there and all the things we got to do, because we got to experience so much. We got to go to NYPD and look at their facilities.
Nice.
and see demonstrations, Philly PD. So just a lot of really good experiences involved in that training.
Good. I want to go back to the mental health aspect, because I know it sounds like a little bit of cliche when we talk about that. And to hear you talk about it, because how long have we been working together? For going on 3 years now. I've never heard you speak about mental health at that length. It's always been, kind of like, well, this is part of the job. And now to hear you talk about it, it's like night and day. So I know sometimes, well, I can't really speak from firsthand experience, just from working with you all. Just speaking about mental health and talking about it is kind of like a tough code to crack. And I am glad to see that you're going to be implementing new things, especially in this new role. But for any officer who would be listening to this, like, how would you drive home the point for them to make sure that they're checking on their buddies?
So I think it's really just that. I think we have to make sure we're checking on each other. I think we have to understand that we're all in the same boat. We're all experiencing the same things, and everybody's not the same. And your personal life experiences sometimes can drive that as well. It's not always just what you're experiencing at work, but oftentimes over the course of my career, I've seen, it's the things that happen in your personal life that pile on top of your work stuff that sometimes can tip the bucket over.
Absolutely.
And it sends you into not being able to sleep, or maybe you're drinking too much, or whatever the case may be. So I think we have to pay attention to each other, and I think we have to be willing to check on each other. And sometimes it means having a tough conversation. This is a really uncomfortable situation for me, and the reason you've never heard me talk about this, because it's uncomfortable for me. Right. It's not in my wheelhouse. It's kind of a touchy-feely type thing, and that's not who I am.
Right, and I can understand that.
But, the training has helped me understand that there's value in some of those things. I mean, I did some things while I was gone that I would have never done before. I took a couple of meditation classes and all that, and I was, I kind of felt like the captain on Bad Boys, the Usai guy. Yeah. I kind of felt like that a little bit while I was there, and but what I found was there was value in some of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And so, it's a tough conversation to have sometimes. We had a meeting yesterday with our violent crimes people, and, and I told them, I was like, look, I get it's tough. It's not easy for me either. I don't like to stand up here and talk about this kind of stuff, but we got to get better. And I believe that if they see that from us at our level,
absolutely,
that they'll be more inclined to open up or to pay attention and to go get some help if they need it. Because there's all kinds of resources, and you don't have to do it. Everybody doesn't need the same way. We have some people here who have a very strong spiritual background, and that's where they lean. We have some people that are, really lean on their, on their physical fitness, and that's where they release stress. We have others that rely on their families and communication. We have others that rely on professional help, and all of those things are fine. We just got to have a way, and kind of getting them to understand that. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we implement it,
right.
the more we're likely to get this thing, moving in the right direction, because these programs are out there, across the country.
Absolutely.
And we just we're kind of catching up. And we just need to do that.
And it's all about really breaking that mold. Kind of what you grew up thinking, one thing was right. And not saying that it was technically wrong, but you just have to be able to make sure that you can go in and have those tough conversations. You can extend a hand to someone, and that hasn't always been extended maybe to you or anyone who's come before you, but now you're in a position to break that mold and say, hey, this is what we can implement. I'm here to help, and I think that that's a great thing.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with Chief Mathis yesterday, and he said this to me. He's like, this is why we send you guys to this kind of training, so you can come back and with these ideas and try to implement these things that make us better. And that's very true, and that's why getting some of this outside training it's different. And my first exposure with this was at Northwestern. I did a 10-week Northwestern leadership program too, and I got a little bit of taste of it then. This was just at the National Academy, this was just a little bit bigger of a taste, and they were able to drive home the correlation between all of these things versus just one part, which I thought that's what spoke to me. That's what really got my attention, because I had never considered it like that.
Right. And I know when I first got here, and I used to see some of the emails that Assistant Chief Dent Fitzpatrick sent out about like stats and alarming rates and things of that nature. And I'm glad we have the peer support group, and I'm also glad that there are other things that are coming here that you're going to be able to expose our officers to as well. So jumping back to the Assistant Chief role. Now, you were working alongside Deputy Chiefs Hastings, Dent, Graham. Am I missing one? It was you. You're the fourth one.
Yep, I'm the fourth one.
You're the fourth one. Okay, so what's something that you've picked up from them, working alongside them, that you're going to take into this new role?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I have worked with Deputy Chief Hastings and Deputy Chief Dent. I worked for both of them at some point in my career and learned a ton of stuff from them over the course of my career. And so I've already taken a lot of what I learned from them at the earlier levels with me, of course, across the course of my journey. So and I'll continue to do that. And Deputy Chief Graham and I haven't I never worked for him, and we never worked super close together, but we're working closer together now than we probably ever have, and that there's value in that. He's got a data-driven mind that I don't have, but it's important, and he's got a structure to that I think is important for us to lean on. Deputy Chief Hastings is, the most organized, structured, guy I've ever known, and he is really, really good at those kind of things, and he helps keep me on track. Sometimes when, and he often does that by questions. He's, hey, how many of this we got? What did y'all do with this? And that helps trigger me to, okay, I need to make sure I'm keeping track of all this kind of stuff. So I've learned an awful lot from him. Deputy Chief Dent and I were in motors together. He was my sergeant in motors. He's been a large mentor to me over the years. My time in motor squad, my career's kind of split in half. At least in my mind, I did spend the majority of it in investigations, but another large portion of my career was spent in the motor unit as a motor officer, and then as the lieutenant in there. So I've gotten a chance to work with him a couple of different times. We're all still pretty close. We still work together all day, every day. We eat lunch together. I don't look for any of that to change. That'll continue to be the case. We'll all continue to work together to try to make sure that we make this place at the Columbus Police Department the best we can make it for our people, because it's not really about us. I had a conversation with an upcoming sergeant last week, and I told the chief this. When you become a supervisor, it no longer is about you. It is now about the people that you're supervising. And that group of people grows every time you move up in a rank. And so, for us, it's not about us individually. It's about our people. It's about the officers that are on the street every day, the investigators that are working every day. It's about what we can do to make them successful and to give them the tools they need to be successful.
All right, so this is something that a lot of people may not know. You were in the business world before you became an officer, right? So what made you switch careers, and what's one thing that the business mindset gave you to become a cop?
So I didn't come until I was 31. So I came a lot later than a lot of people. I was 31 years old when I came to the police department. My wife begrudgingly authorized that after working on her for several years to try to get her to do that. But I'll tell you, it's kind of a weird story, but I had been in the scrap metal and recycling business with my family for a lot of years. And then I went into the insurance business, and I was an insurance adjuster. And I made good money, and I was able to support my family, and it was a good job. But I was doing a lot of travel, and it was just daytime traveling. But I was on a trip one day, and I just started thinking about, and I was going back to school, working on one of my degrees, and I just got to thinking one day while I was on a trip by myself, how many hours a day do I spend working? And then I did the math of how many hours in a week, and then how many hours in a month, and then how many hours in a year. And then, with an average life expectancy, how much time are you spending working? And when I did the math, it was staggering to me to think, I need to be doing something. If I've got to spend this much of my life working, I need to be doing something that I really enjoy. You've heard the old saying, do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
That kind of hit home when I did the math. It was the math that really stuck in my head that made me start thinking, hey, I need to find something that really jumps out and that I really enjoy and love doing. And my dad had been a police officer when I was a young kid, and he got out. He was a police officer here in the 70s. And he was here only about 3 years, and he left and went to work with the state probation. And I just always had that kind of in the back of my mind, that policing. I just thought I would really enjoy it. So I did a ride-along while I was in college, I came and I was much older, and I rode one night with a patrol officer, and it's actually funny because the guy I was riding with was in Chief Kennedy, whose spot I'm taking. She was the sergeant of that squad at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so I got assigned to him to ride with that night during an internship. And we got behind a stolen car. We got into a vehicle pursuit. He ran out to Fort Benning and crashed, and foot pursuit, drugs, guns, all that. And they could have signed me up that night. I was like, hey, I was so stoked. I was like, hey, where do I sign up? Give me the paperwork. Let me sign it right now. And from that point forward, I had the bug. And so I started the process, and the rest is history.
And what year did you come in again? I don't want to try to calculate. I know you said you came at 31 years old.
03.
03, okay. So 22 years.
Yep, I'm on my 23rd year right now.
23rd.
January will be 23.
Okay, January will be 23. 23 years from officer to assistant chief.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to say it's a quick track, but that's a track that some people will never see as an officer.
I've been very fortunate. There's no doubt about that. My story is not everybody's story.
Right.
And to kind of go back to part of the question, I know I got on this long tangent about how I got into the police business, but in part of your question, the other question was how did my business experience transition? That has transitioned, especially in my higher ranks. It has transitioned, tremendously when you start talking about budgets and handling money and personnel and paperwork and those kind of things. My business experience translates, greatly from my business, into what I'm doing now and what I've done over the last, 7 years or so. Mm-hmm. So, and I was a little older, right? I was 31, so I had some life experiences. I was married, I had been working, I had kids. So I had some life experiences, a little more mature, and that's not to downplay our 21-year-olds that come in the door right out of school.
Right.
It's not to downplay that at all, but being a little bit older and having those life experiences 100% has helped me over the course of my career. It's, part of the reason is because I learned as an adult, you learn how to talk to people and how to communicate with people, right?
Absolutely.
And that was huge because I had spent, 10 or so, 12, 15 years, communicating with people in a business world that helped me be able to communicate with people on the streets, no matter who they were or what was going on. And that's helped me tremendously over the course of my career. So,
is there one thing that you feel like you could have done differently over the course of your career? And if so, what would that be?
So there's two places I wish I would have worked. I wouldn't have wanted to work there for a long period of time. A couple of years in each place would have been great. I would have loved to have had those experiences. One was special operations or narcotics. I spent about a month and a half over there doing some training with them when I was a sergeant up here in investigations. I really got the bug, and I asked the major at the time, I was like, hey, you can just leave me over here. And he was like, oh, no, you're going back to homicide. You're not staying over here. But it was a lot of fun. I would have really, and then I find myself later, taking over command or management of the Special Operations Unit as a deputy chief. So that's one area. The other area, and some people will think this is kind of crazy, but OPS.
Okay.
There's real value, I think, in understanding how that process works. Internal investigations, administrative investigations. And so I would have, those are probably the two places I would have, like I said, I wouldn't have wanted to spend a long time there in either place, but a couple of years in each place if I had it to do over again.
Right. So OPS, for those who are listening, is our Office of Professional Standards, and they deal a lot with policy and internal investigations, like you mentioned. They would have loved to have you over there, I'm sure. So I know you kind of talked about like the night you did a ride along, but let's talk about like a funny or a story that you remember all together just from, I don't know, I guess your time in patrol or motor squad, one that sticks with you.
So Deputy Chief Dent he'll kill me for telling this story, but he
probably won't listen.
He probably won't, but somebody will tell him about it, I guarantee you, and I bring this story up all the time. So Lieutenant Carnes and I, Lieutenant Carnes is the lieutenant over motor squad now. We were in motors together as motor officers, and we were more proactive type motor officers, and so we were constantly, in high crime areas, making stops and, chasing people and that kind of stuff. And Lieutenant Carnes one day got behind a car on Veterans Parkway up near Wilson, and he is the car's not like fleeing from him. It just won't stop. It's just like creeping. So he's calling it out. I'm way over on Armour Road. So I leave Armour Road on a stop, and I'm coming to him. By the time I get there, he's got the guy stopped, got out of the car. Everything is good. Well, Deputy Chief Dent was the sergeant at the time. He was actually gone to a doctor's appointment, and the lieutenant was covering for him. So she came out, and as soon as Sergeant Dent at the time got out from the doctor, she called him and said, "Oh, these boys have been in a police car chase and all that kind of stuff." And we were on our motorcycles, which can be dangerous, of course.
Right.
And so he was so mad at us. Back then we had private line on our radios. So all of a sudden, both of our radios are going beep, 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 and that's him private lining us. And he gets us both. He's like, "Meet me it's the old Crystal at where the Crystal used to be at River Road, right there close, River and Veterans." Right. He said, "Meet me at the Crystal parking lot." So we get out, we go over there, and he gets out of his car, and he chews us up one side and down the other. He is so mad at us. And he takes this piece of chalk out of his car, and he said, "I want you to know there is a chalk line around Wilson Apartments, and if I'm going to check your tires on your motorcycles every single day, and if I see a speck of chalk on those tires, I'm suspending both of you." And so for years, like when I was the motor lieutenant, he still had that piece of chalk on his cabinet in his office. And so I look back on that now, and it was, and here's the whole deal. And he says that I just make this up. I really wasn't even there. I was on Armour Road. I wasn't even there. I wasn't even present. All I did was show up after the fact. I wasn't even there during the whole incident. But we get a big kick out of that now, and he says I have PTSD behind that, getting in trouble behind that, but we laugh about it now. But that's a funny story that Fred and I, we always pick it at Clyde about that.
I'm still imagining him walking around with a piece of chalk.
Yeah, like the big fat pieces of chalk like you get your kids.
Chalk?
Yeah, big old piece of chalk like that. and he didn't really like put a chalk line out, but the metaphor was clear. Like stay out of there.
Right.
So but it was an interesting time. I love my time over there, working as a motor guy. I learned a lot. That's really where, I started learning how to be an investigator, because we investigated fatalities. And so that transition, when I left there, I came up to robbery and assault and homicide. And so, I was able to transition from there into robbery and assault, homicide, and continue to do death investigations and violent crimes. And so, but that was really the start of my learning how to be an investigator.
Right. I think I'm going to go ask Deputy Chief Dent if he still has a piece of chalk. Maybe I'll ask him if he has a piece of chalk I can use. If he pulls it out, so help me God.
He's going to know exactly where that story came from. I promise you, he's going to.
He'll probably get you for that.
Yeah, no doubt.
So let's talk about Chief Mathis now. You've worked closely with him since he came in 2023. Now you're stepping into a role where his trust in you is clear. How has his leadership influenced your own approach, and what does it mean to have his confidence as you take this next step?
Well, he's really, been a mentor since he's been here, and I think that's, he wanted to be able to do that. I think his goal when he got here, and he told us this, that he was going to try to prepare the next group of people, and I think that's what we all should be doing, is preparing the next group of people to take our places and to take command of certain areas, and so I've been very much appreciative of his mentorship since he's been here. He brings a different perspective coming from the outside, which we've never had an outside chief here before. And so, I tell all my people, and I have told them this for a while now, having a perspective from the outside, and then even going to this outside training that I've been going to, helps give you a perspective of, hey, we're all dealing with a lot of the same stuff, but also what it gives you is that, hey, things aren't maybe as bad as we think they are, because our only form of reference is here. So I've spent almost 23 years here, so my only form of reference is here at the Columbus Police Department. He brings in a form of reference from, three other agencies that he can kind of bring in. So that's been very interesting, and a big learning point for me, that, hey, there are other ways to do things. It's not just our way, and there might be a more efficient way to do something, or there might be a better way to, change morale or culture, depending on the issues and a different perspective. So that's been a huge learning portion for me with him being here as the chief. His mentorship has been very much appreciated, and he continues to do that. I'm very grateful that he feels a level of confidence in me to take this position. I hope that I can give him a little relief from the operations side, so he can focus on some other things to help continue to move us forward. That would be my plan, is to kind of take some of that stuff that he felt like he really needed to focus on in the first couple years here, because of the shape we were in. And I think we're at a point now where if I can take some of that stuff off of his plate, he can focus on some other things, and that continues to help us move forward. So that would be the plan moving forward.
Nice. Outside the badge, you're a husband, a girl dad, a new granddaddy. How do you balance all of that? Well, how do you plan to balance all of that with the weight of leadership now?
So it's tough right now. As we speak, my oldest daughter and her husband and my grandson are actually here from Kansas, and so they've been with us for a couple of weeks, and so our house is full. All but one daughter is home. So our little house from we've lived in the same house since the kids were really small. So now we got extra people, extra dogs, and so it's a lot. But having them all home, my oldest daughter and son-in-law are both teachers, and so they get the summer off, which is great. And they usually come to visit a couple of weeks during the summer, and being able to spend some time with my grandson has been super fun. I brought him up here the other day and let him see the motorcycles, and he just thought that was the coolest thing he'd ever seen. So, I've got another daughter that just graduated from law school. She just bought her first house, and so I spent last weekend moving her to her house in Montgomery. She's about to go to work with the state of Alabama. I have another daughter that is I'll be moving in August to Tennessee to go to PA school, and then the baby is a nursing student at Auburn, and she's engaged. So I told you this yesterday when you called me. I was actually at a wedding venue that she wanted her mom and I to look at. So
and I couldn't fuss at you.
You couldn't. I told you, I was like, that's an excuse that's got to be true, because nobody's making that excuse up.
Right.
So, but it's a lot. But I've been super fortunate. I've had really good support from my family this whole career, and this career is tough on families. It just is.
Yeah.
but super supportive. My wife, we've been married 30 years.
Hey, Liz.
And together, 35 years. So, and 4 daughters. So, but and they're all doing their own things. We're not quite empty nesters. We'll be empty nesters for a few months at a time, and then right now they seem to keep coming back.
That's usually how it goes. My dad would probably say the same thing.
But I would think that probably slows down a little bit as they get into their own careers and that kind of stuff. And so, but super proud of them. Super proud to be a girl dad. Everybody always asks me, you just keep trying for that boy? No, that really wasn't a thing. I did all the things with my girls that they played softball, and one of them played in college, and we did all of the, we played catch and did all the things. So
right.
No,
but you have your boy now and your grandbaby.
I have a grandson, and that's
all the boy you need.
He's a lot of boy. There's no doubt he's a lot of boy, and he is loud and gruff, and he is very aggressive in his speak. He is like, he can't say anything in a normal tone. It's like
he's gonna let you know that he's in a room, and
no doubt.
And
the louder you are, the louder he gets. And with having all those girls around, his aunts around, yeah, they're all loud too. And so
sounds like the boss to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
No doubt.
Hold up. You're an Alabama fan, am I right?
You're right.
You been wearing orange and blue yet for that youngest daughter?
So
how did that even come about? Was she okay asking you to go there?
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Our first daughter finished her college career up in Kansas. The second daughter was at UAH in Huntsville, where you went. You went to school in Huntsville too. 3.5, 4 hours away from home. The third one was down in Mobile. At South Alabama, 3.5 hours away from home. So when it came time for the baby to go to college, she wanted to go to Auburn. She had a boyfriend that they had been dating since high school, and he went there. Plus, she got an ROTC scholarship there. And, her mama was like, it would be great to finally have a child that I don't have to drive 3.5 hours if something happens.
Right.
She would worry about them every time, if a car breaks down or they got a flat tire, or, and life happens, and you got to make those arrangements because you're not there. And
right.
So having her closer to home, and I just realized, hey, if Mama's happy, and she is really close to home, because I live in Phoenix City, so, it's a 35-minute drive
right.
for me to get to her anytime I need to. So that's, my whole family grew up as Alabama fans. She is clearly an Auburn fan now. She keeps very strategically bringing home Auburn stuff. And so you'll see me sometimes walking around with an Auburn ROTC cup. It's blue and orange. I have to keep pointing out that it says ROTC, and I'm trying to support her ROTC more than I'm trying to support the Auburn stuff. But
so, some of us can't tell the difference.
Yeah, I know. But I, 100% support her, and super happy that she's got an opportunity to go there, and she's in nursing school there and in ROTC, so she's getting a good education, and they've been really good to her. The ROTC program has been good too, so
good.
No complaints. Good. Even if it is Auburn. That's
good.
Tough to say.
I know. This is weird.
I know. I'm evolving, apparently.
So something happened at that 10-week academy that I can kind of put my hand on it, but
I know my kids tell me that my emotional intelligence is getting better because it's never been very good.
I won't say that it has not been very good, but
I took a test and it wasn't very good.
Okay, well the test told you, not me. I didn't have to say it. So we're gonna wrap it up. I feel like we've been talking for a minute, and I know it's almost your lunchtime. If y'all don't know, this man has to eat at 11 o'clock every day, and it's past 11 o'clock right now.
Motorman lunchtime.
So if he flips his table over, it's because he needs a burger or something. But anyway, when all is said and done, how do you want people at Team CPD to remember Lance Deaton?
I think, what you're really asking is about legacy. What you want your legacy to be. I think for me, I think it's important to me that people understand that I genuinely care about them, and that it really is less about me and more about them. And I hope that I portray that, and I hope that that's the message I don't just say, but that's the message I portray. And so when I look at what that legacy looks like, I think, it's that for me. It's having people that understand that I care about them, and I want what's best for them, and I'm going to do, what I can in order to help them be successful. So, I know that's kind of a simple, thing, but it's really, to me, it's what leadership is about. It's we like to overcomplicate things, and to me, it's not overly complicated. It should just be simple.
Absolutely. So, yeah, now you chose the word legacy, and that is fine. I try not to say legacy because some people feel like, oh, my God, I got to live up to that. But I'll let you choose that word.
That's really what you're saying.
Yes. I worded it different. Remember, words matter.
Words matter. You want to tell that story?
You want to? I don't.
Only if he's going to listen to this podcast.
He may listen all the way to the end, but if he doesn't, but this is just, I always tell soon-to-be Assistant Chief Deaton that him and longtime reporter Chuck Williams have like this weird bromance, and when they are spatting it's the funniest thing ever. And I don't remember what we were talking about that day. What were we talking about?
Gangs.
And he wanted to know if this had gang ties. And you said maybe it has a gang nexus. And y'all went back and forth about this for so long. And you ended the argument with, well, you're the journalist. You should know that words matter. And I said, well, I'll be doggone. I think you just shut Chuck Williams up. And I don't know that has ever really happened. Sorry, Chuck, if you're listening to this, don't beat me up, okay? But it was kind of funny. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up here. Tuesday, July 22nd, that's going to be your promotion ceremony.
Yep.
And it will be live on our Facebook page or YouTube. Haven't decided yet. Maybe both. Either way, so if you all want to tune in, you will be promoted alongside several other people. Obviously when one person in leadership leaves, like that opens up more spaces. But from all across the department, we will have some promotions going on. But either way, thank you all for listening to Beyond the Badge. We'll be back here. Until next time, stay connected.